everyone, this is Brittnee Bond, and welcome back to the podcast. Today I'm going to talk about my Egyptian adventure again because there's so much more to share with you, so many downloads, so much chaos, so many good stories, and also a lot of spiritual upgrades. And I hope that I know that by sharing all of this, it will also upgrade your life as well. So let's dive right into it. I knew that I wanted to go to the pyramids in Cairo and also the Temple of Isis. I've always felt super connected to the lineage of Isis. If you don't know much about her, she is a goddess, where a lot of Egyptians say this is the origin of magic in Egypt. They believe that Egypt is the foundation of magic. And from what I've studied around origin stories of humanity and magic, I actually agree with this. And the Temple of Isis in of itself is the orientation and the origin story of pleasure magic. So I've always felt very connected to this for obvious reasons. But let's talk about my adventures to go to the pyramids first. I've had a lot of friends go to the pyramids, and I actually had an ex-boyfriend who took DMT inside the sarcophagus in the pyramids. I don't necessarily recommend doing that, but he got a lot of downloads. What he saw was when he was on, it's so funny that someone did this and that I dated this person. But anyways, he saw when he was on DMT how inside of the pyramids, energetically, it was like a library of information. Kind of like the Akashic records, if you've ever heard of that, which is basically the quantum realm, like all of us, everything that has ever been known about humanity in the field. And this is kind of what it was like inside the pyramids. And so he was telling me, like, from a vibrational standpoint, it was such a big upgrade for him. He got a lot of downloads, and I was like, I want to experience this for myself. So if you haven't listened to the last podcast that I titled How I Died in Egypt, what I want to say is that when we got to Cairo, my friend Jimmy that I was traveling with, he got very violently ill, and we were in the hospital for the emergency room for about 8 hours. And so the next day when he was feeling better, miraculously he got better. And the next day I was like, I really want to go to the pyramids. We only had a couple days that we had booked to go to Cairo. We got this really nice Airbnb, and I was like, I came to Egypt for the pyramids. I've been trying to come here for 8 years, like women on a mission, I'm like, we need to go. And something that I kept forgetting over and over again in Egypt is it's very similar to India in the sense that everything takes 1,000 million times longer than you think it would. We are not in Germany. We are not in California. We are not in the rest of the world. And so driving wise from the Airbnb to the pyramids was 30 minutes drive. It took us 3 hours to actually get to the pyramids because there was traffic, because we needed to stop and get some food, blah, 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 blah. So when we get to the pyramids, it closed within 10 minutes of us being there. And I am very irritated by this. I was very frustrated because I was like, this is why I came. And particularly, I mean, it wasn't anyone's fault. Like Jimmy was like, I told you we need to get here early. Like he was like doing his best to make sure that I got what I needed. He's a tour guide, so like he understood like what needed to happen. But I was just, it was really interesting because I wanted to be my flowy feminine self. Egypt takes forever, and there was a lot of external chaos, like my friends getting sick, that made it so the trip just, I felt like, this is what I meant when I said in the last podcast that like it felt kind of like Egypt was like slowly fucking me, but like not in a good way, and I had to just kind of like ride the waves of it and like figure out how to deal with it, which just created a lot of chaos and me just trying to stay in my center. So anyways, there's 4 of us, me and 3 Egyptian men that I'm traveling with. We get to the pyramids in a car that we rented, and we have 10 minutes to see the pyramids. And so I go with Jimmy, who I came to Egypt with from Germany, and the 2 other guys that we travel with. They just kind of were like, you guys go ahead. Like, I know you're on a mission. They've already been to the pyramids a million times, so for them, it wasn't a big deal. And so we jump in a horse carriage, because like to get from the beginning of the pyramids to like from the entrance to the actual pyramids, if you want to walk, it takes about a half an hour. So we jump into like a horse carriage and we're like, I just flung my notes for effect. So we jump into the horse carriage and we're like, let's go. And so like the horses are going. We get to the big pyramid. There's 3 pyramids there, if you don't know. The big pyramid was already closed because it takes too long to get inside up into this. So we went to one of the smaller ones, and we go inside, and Jimmy like tells the security guard in Arabic, like, she's here for meditation. Can she please meditate here? And usually this is something I find really interesting about all the spiritual places in Egypt, is that they don't actually like you doing meditation or spiritual work there. And you want to know why? It's because they know magic is real. Like Egyptians all know. Like this, I find this really interesting. Is the rest of the world, there's like people, most of the Western world, we are living from a cognitive perspective, like rational thinking. Things need to be built based on science in order for it to for people to believe it and to prove that it's real. Egypt is not like this. Egypt is like, everyone understands that magic is real. Everyone understands that there is a whole spiritual realm and that you don't want to fuck with that. Basically, they are worried about foreigners coming and messing with the magic there. And like, they understand that there are protective spirits and all of these like power points energetically. So like the pyramids is a huge power point. The Temple of Isis is a huge power point. And they know that there are spirits, there are entities that are protecting these. So like they're actually protecting the temple, and they don't want you to come and do like black magic and come fuck with it and like mess it up for them. And I started hearing some of these stories because my friends all spoke Arabic. So they were talking to the security guards and the people at the temple. And so I understood that this was like a real thing. But anyway, so Jimmy talks to the security guard and he's like, no, she's good. Like, she's only going to do like good magic here. And can you please just create a reality around her where it's safe to do this? And something to know is that like I would say 90% of the people there are actually there just to take a photo and leave. Like, they're just normal tourists. Like, a lot of them are Russian. And they're in these big like tour groups. So like suddenly there'll be like 30 of them in one room. And so when you go inside the pyramid, it's actually a very small room on the inside where the main room is. And I went in there and I sat and I meditated, and I put on my headphones because I just wanted to cancel out everyone else. And I put like my meditation music on, and I was like really, really feeling the energy go through my body. I was like, wow, okay, this is really intense. I'm just going to breathe into this. I invite you to take a deep breath with me. And when I first closed my eyes, it was a bunch of random tourists like taking photos and like taking selfies and da-da-da. And I just closed my eyes, put my headphones on, and I'm like, okay, whatever. I'm in my own reality. And I was getting a lot of downloads. I was seeing things in my mind's eye. I was like understanding vibrationally why I needed to go there, because my soul was like locking in. Like, what the download I had received before I went to Egypt was basically that all of us are we are energy vibrating so quickly that we appear to have matter. But this is why you can like put a knife through us. Like, we're not actually solid matter. We're not concrete, right? And so when you're in certain places, like everything has a vibrational reality. Everything has a vibrational marker. And when you go there and you're an energy vibrating fast, you can lock in. So basically what it was told to me, it's hard to put into words in this physical reality, but basically it's like I had a key inside of me energetically, and there was a portal inside the pyramids, and when I go there, it unlocks something. And this was more of a vibrational thing than it was anything like intellectually happening, but I could feel in my body, like my hands were vibrating. I could feel the energy going through my body. And this went on for about 10, 15 minutes. And at this point, I'm in a different dimension. I'm like getting downloads. I'm understanding things from past lives. And I open my eyes finally, and I look around the room, and there are 20 people around me silently meditating. So like I said before, when I closed my eyes, it was just people taking photos and this and that. But like the security guard told everyone to shush. and they all saw me meditating, and Jimmy was next to me, like kind of to the side, just giving me space, but like watching over me. I jokingly called him like my security guard the whole trip. So he was just like making sure I was okay, watching over me. And when I opened my eyes, like everyone in the room was meditating, or they were silently like just contemplating. And I could feel the energy amplified because all of us were also meditating together. And I was just like, wow, this is so beautiful. You know, like we are all these antennas vibrationally. And when more and more of us slow down and we get off freaking TikTok and social media and we connect to what is outside of us, you know, in the spirit world, and we open this antenna and we allow the energy through in a way where it is, you know, and I'm talking about opening up to whatever has our highest good in mind, whatever has our highest timeline. If you're scared to meditate because you're worried about opening yourself up to dark magic or negative entities, you can always send a protection message out where you say, I am only opening myself up to things and entities that have my highest good in mind. Or I am only opening myself up to my higher self, God, the universe, everyone who has my highest timeline in mind and my highest good in mind. And this is like literally we create our realities. So when you say this, this is the only thing that's going to be open up to you. You're not going to be open to anything negative. And this is what I was doing. And I was just like sitting there. And when I opened my eyes, I looked at Jimmy and he was like, you know, kind of giving me this look like, are you good? And I'm like, oh, I'm so good. And I was so happy and I felt so soft and so in my body and also so appreciative of him because I was being really bitchy like right before we went there because I was like kind of blaming it on him, even though it wasn't his fault. He got sick the day before. It wasn't his fault. He was trying to get us out of the house earlier to make sure we got there on time. It wasn't his fault. But for me, I was just frustrated. He was the closest thing around me to get frustrated at. So I apologized to him. I said I was sorry. And I was like really grateful for him. And when we went back to the car, we found the other two friends that were just waiting for us patiently in the car. And I was just telling all of them, like, I'm so happy. I'm so happy. I'm so happy. I'm so happy. So that was one of the main reasons why I went there. And it made me really grateful. And something else that is super interesting is we went to eat after this. This is also what I was trying to say is like every time we were going somewhere and we thought it would be calm, like something crazy would happen. So we went to eat and, you know, after this, we're like just sitting there, decompressing, having a nice time. And, you know, in Egypt, the roads are super busy. And if you're Egyptian or if you've lived in like India or Thailand where like it's normal to cross busy roads, you kind of understand how things work and like how to operate within this system, right? If you're a tourist or like and you've never been to anything like this before, it is not normal to understand how to operate in the system. And so we're sitting there eating and talking and laughing, and suddenly I hear someone scream. And someone like and I look over and two older people get hit by a car, like I'm not even joking, right in front of us. So we're sitting here, the road is literally right next to us. And these people just apparently walked right in front of a taxi driver. And so anyways, it's an old Russian couple, like husband and wife. And the lady is just in the road and there's like probably 10, 15 Egyptian men around her. And something to know about Egypt is like everyone's talking all at once over each other and the road is loud, everything's loud. And I just remember thinking, no, I need to help her. So I run from the restaurant and like Jimmy's running after me, like, where are you going? What are you doing? I was like, I need to help her because I just know what it's like to be in a foreign country and to have like, you need to have someone who is like you, like a foreigner looking like you, can speak like you know, this and that. And at the time I didn't realize she was Russian. She spoke English, but also to have like a woman come up and be there. So I went up to her and she was like bleeding from her face. Her dress was ripped and her purse, her money, everything was out. And I just went to her. I was like, you're okay. You're okay. And she like looked up at me and she was like so like dazed and confused and she was in shock. And I was like, you're in shock. It's okay. Let's like get you out of the street. And, you know, I covered up her dress, her boob was hanging. It was really a whole mess. And she was like bleeding everywhere. So me and a couple other people help her get up, and she only wanted me to touch her. Like she didn't want any of the men to touch her. So I was like helping carry her off the road. And we went to the, like right in front of the road, there was a hotel. So I was like, let's go inside, let's sit down. I got her some water. It was really beautiful because her purse had like scattered across the road, and like all of her money, her phone, everything had scattered, and like all the people like collected all the money. They got her phone, they brought everything. And so I was like, here's your money, here's your phone, da, da. And then she was like saying like, where's my husband? And I didn't know where her husband was, but I just knew that she needed to stay there. And so she kept trying to get up and leave and walk out because, of course, she's like, where's my husband? Like, I need to make sure he's okay. And she's like calling him on the phone, but he's not answering. And in my reality, I didn't even see her husband. I was just focused on her and making sure she's okay. And then like Jimmy comes into the hotel, and he's like, I'm like, she's looking for her husband. Like, she really needs to find her husband. And he's like, no, you don't want to show her husband right now. I was like, do you know where he is? Like, we need to, like, she's not going to calm down until you find out where her husband is. And he's like, he's outside, but the ambulance is coming, and like, he doesn't look good, you know? And I was like, okay. Like Jimmy was kind of like, I don't know if this is a good thing to like connect them or reconnect them right now. And I said to him, I was like, she needs to see her husband. She's not going to be able to calm down until she does. And so I went outside to see him, and he was in a really bad shape. Like one eye was like completely gone. And like, I don't even want to go into it, because if you're an empathetic person like me, it's going to be very hard to receive that. But let's just say that he was in a very bad place. Physically, he was going to survive, but he was not looking good physically, and he had a lot of blood everywhere. And so I went back inside, and I said to her, your husband is okay. He's outside. And she just immediately stood up. She was like, I want to go. But she could barely walk. And then she kept like falling over. So I was like, okay, if you really want to see him, I just need to warn you, like, he's bleeding a lot, like, da da da. And she's like, I don't care. I just want to find my husband. And I understand, you know, like when you're in a foreign country and you feel unsafe and you just went through this really traumatic thing, you just want to find people that feel like home, that are like literally your home. And so I helped her to go outside. And when she saw him, she was like, oh no, you know, and I'm like, it's okay. It's okay. And so we got her a chair next to him, and they were basically trying to help him, and like pouring alcohol, like rubbing alcohol on him, antibiotic stuff, and just trying to like clean some of the blood off so they could understand what was really happening. And he just wasn't even able to speak. He was in so much shock. But I was just happy that like they both were going to live. The ambulance came. They put them in the ambulance. They got them to the hospital. Everything was okay. We called their family. Their family came and like helped them. But for me, I was just like, can we have one day that is calm, please? Because for me, that like my nervous system was so activated after that. I was just like, I don't feel safe. And I knew I was safe in the country, but you know, when you see something super intense like that, of course your nervous system is going to be on high alert. It's going to want to make sure that doesn't happen to you. And especially after just having Jimmy in the hospital the day before, I was just like, can everything please calm down? That's how I felt like about most of Egypt. I was like, can it please be quieter? Can we just calm down? Do we need to have all of these things happening all at once? It felt like energetically I was like getting put in like a wash machine, and like it was like getting turned up all the way. Like I was just like being spun. And all I could do was do my best to stay in my center. And then some other things I want to share is that like, I found it really interesting. Like we were staying somewhere where, you know, I ended up staying a couple times like in really local Egyptian communities where it was just like, you know, I was staying with like friends and their family. And what I found really interesting was like observing the culture. This is again what was helping me to heal some of my wounds around the way I was raised, because, you know, when you're raised in super patriarchal culture where like men run everything, you start hating that and feeling rebellious against it and needing to make sure that changes in the world. At least that's how I felt. And then I thought it was interesting to like stay in like some very rural, like small towns, or like, how do I put this? Staying in cities where there is no tourists. Like I was staying in places where there's absolutely no tourists, and you're staying in like a local Egyptian community. And I want to give you one example of something that happened. So I'm eating with my friend's family, and we're eating like some really yummy food on the floor in the living room, which is very Egyptian style. And suddenly, like out of the balcony window, I start hearing like people screaming and like fighting. And so and it's just me and all the women in the household. We're eating together because all the guys were downstairs. This is also like a very normal thing in Egypt. Like the women eat together and all the men like kind of eat downstairs in the cafe. Again, this is something that I was like feeling rebellious about before, but after I settled into the culture, I was I don't know, you just kind of acclimate to it. But this is something that I found interesting is when I went out to the balcony and I looked down, it's a very small street and there's balconies on both sides, up and down, like above me and below me. All of the women are on the balcony looking down at the situation, and all of the men are in the street handling the situation. And it was I found out later it was two brothers who were fighting each other, and everyone in the neighborhood, everyone knows them. Like these are people, everyone has grown up with them, each other. So it's like a real village environment. And the men were all down there like handling the situation, and all of the women were on the balcony like watching. And then there was only like one woman who was like yelling down, and I found out later it was the boy's mom. It was the men's mom. They were not boys, they were like in their 20s. It was their mom like yelling at them to stop fighting and like, you know, come upstairs. But from like a cultural perspective, I found this to be really beautiful about how it felt like I was in a tribe, and like people like it might not be how I would live my life or how I would set up my tribe, but I found it to be really beautiful that like the men really handled it, and they did. And like they made them stop fighting. They made them talk about it. You know, in the end, the brothers ended up like hugging each other and like literally like hugging it out. And all of the women were watching. And I was told later by my friends that like the women are the ones who actually have the power here, because the men are all doing this. A lot of times the men are fighting. It's a weird thing to say. It's like a lot of times the men are fighting, and the way that it gets handled is, it's like at the end of the day, they have to go home to their women, their wives, right? And the wives are going to be the ones to tell them whether they agreed with the situation or not. And the wives are the ones who really have the power in how, you know, like, are you going to go home and your wife's going to respect you of how you just handled the situation? And if she doesn't like it, she's going to tell you about it. And she's going to really like make you feel how she feels about the situation. And also there's like kind of this respect in front of the whole tribe. Like, are you going to be respected the next time you go out of your house? Are people going to honor you for how you handled and showed up in this specific situation? And I'm not saying that this is the only fight that I saw when I was here in this community, but this was, for me, it was such an interesting cultural like situation, because I was like, one, why is there only men down there? Two, why are all the women watching from the balcony? And three, like, what's happening? Like, because I've just never experienced this before. Like, this is how I felt in Egypt. I was just like, what's happening? Like, what's going on? I've never experienced this before. And also, in a way, it's like totally working for all of them, because at the end of the day, like, all of the men there are doing their best to protect their wives, to make sure their wives feel safe, to show up for their family, to make sure that their family is respected and honored within the community. It really is a tribal setting. I found that in Egypt was one of the, I mean, I think Southern Africa also has this kind of like tribal setting, but like this is the first time that I've experienced firsthand on the inside what it felt like to be like amongst people in this tribe, and to understand how it's working from their perspective. I just found that so interesting. And then like for me, like going through within this community that I was in with all my friends, like they are from there, right? And so when I go around this community, this neighborhood, I'm there with my friends, and like, first off, my friend is related to like the entire city block, like where we were staying. And so when we pulled up, I'm not even joking, like 100 people came out to say hi to him. And I would say 99 of those people were his actual family, like his blood related family. And so when I'm walking around the city block, like every single person knows that I'm connected to the family and that I'm a guest of the family. And so when I go to buy fruit or to buy anything like within the city block, they won't let me pay for anything. what they do is they write it down, and the next time that one of the men from the family go down there, they'll pay for what I just got. And again, this is something where in the past I would find this to be like something I didn't like. But I actually found this to be like really beautiful because I was completely in my feminine power. I was just following my desires. If I wanted to get some fruit, if I wanted to get some clothes, if I wanted to get some food to bring it back upstairs, like anything I wanted, I could have. And then another one of the days we went out, and we went shopping, and I bought like a whole new wardrobe in Egypt because I love the clothes there. And they have really good quality clothes, really good styles. Just highly recommend Egyptian clothes. But if they see me, Brittnee Bond, as obviously I'm a Taurus, I do not belong there. And so I went shopping with 3 of my Egyptian friends who are men. And this whole experience was also super like cool and interesting. I don't know what just happened. I think something just fell in my bathroom. I went shopping with them, and like I found this to be all super interesting because I would just go and like pick out what I wanted, try it on, and then I would hand it to one of the guys, like usually Jimmy, and I would just be like, I want this. And he would be like, okay. And then he would go and negotiate with the guy who's like selling the clothes. Like this is when we're in like the main city, so not in their family community. And because they knew they were from this city and like they're not tourists, he was able to negotiate a price, usually like half the price of what initially was offered. And then also like basically I would just say I want this, they would negotiate it, they would pay for it, and I would just move on to the next store and I would keep shopping. And I was just like, I love this. Like again, in the past this is something that would bother me, because I think this is something that's really important that I realized within the last year, was that I have a standard of living for my life, of like how I want to live in my life. Like, what is the standard for a place I want to live in? What's the standard for the clothes I want to have, and just how I adorn myself. And it was really important for me to prove to myself that I could give myself this standard. So basically, like, I didn't need a man in order to pay for the lifestyle that I wanted. I can pay for my own lifestyle. And as a woman, this is, if you've never done this as a woman, if you haven't proven to yourself that you can like pay for your own lifestyle as a woman, there's no way that you will ever be able to truly ask yourself, I want to say this in a way that makes sense. In past relationships, I have dated men who made way more money than I did, that were millionaires, that were very successful, all these things. And I always ask myself, like, am I with them because of the money and the lifestyle, or am I with them because I love them? And of course I loved them. And also I think that there is a shadow side that we have as women, where if you haven't proven to yourself that you can pay for it yourself, then you will never be able to honestly answer that question for yourself. And in the last year, I have proven to myself that I can like live the lifestyle that I want, like on my own accord. And when I broke up with my last partner last year and I got a villa in Thailand, I started making the money that I was making when I worked in a law firm many years ago, but I was living in Thailand. So, it made it so my lifestyle was able to be very abundant. And after I've proven this to myself, it makes it so that when I'm in situations like I just share with you, where I'm like shopping and they're handling everything and paying for things, it makes it so that I can receive that in a way that feels abundant, and it feels, I don't know how else to put it, but it just feels like an exhale. Like it's like, thank you. Like I could have done this by myself, but you wanted to do this for me, and I really appreciate it, and thank you. And I had one of you message me on Instagram, and because I shared a couple posts about like me allowing myself to receive from the men around me. And I had one of you ask like, yeah, but what happens? Like, she was asking like, are you sleeping with all of these men? And if not, then how do you manage that situation? And I'll tell you that like, I have so many men in my life that show up for me, and 9 out of 10 times I'm not sleeping with them. And the reason why this is like okay and healthy is because we talk about it. We have communication. There's a communication tool called RBDSM that I've shared in many podcasts before. And it's basically just talking about the relationship and what are you both wanting to get out of this connection? And what does it mean if you have sex? What does it mean if you don't have sex? What does it mean to share energy in each other's lives? And when you have that clear of communication with the person that you're connecting with, so I'll say, for example, if I'm having a connection with a man and he's showing up for me and like paying for things for me, and we talk about it, like, does this mean that we need to have sex? Does this mean, what does it mean if we don't have sex? What energy exchange? Because there's always an energy exchange out of every connection with whether it's your friends, your families, lovers, men that you're sleeping with, men that you're not sleeping with. And it's just important that you have communication around this, and that because the shadow side of that is that if you don't have communication around it, it can actually be, I would say that as a woman, a shadow side of this is manipulation. So if you're not clearly communicating and you're just allowing yourself to receive from a man and you're not sleeping with him, it's very easy for him to think like, oh, this is building towards a relationship, or this is building towards us sleeping together. And if you're not talking about that and you're just giving like cues, like you're giving the vibe that this is a possibility and you're not talking about it, then that can actually come across as manipulation. And this is where a lot of men, like rightfully so, feel frustrated because they don't know where they stand and they don't know what's happening. And of course, maybe they do want, I would say that there are a lot of men out there that are giving just to receive sex, and I don't agree with that. I mean, personally in my life, I'm not going to judge them. They can do whatever they want. But there are a lot of men that I attract into my life that give to me out of their abundance and out of their extra and out of the fact that they just love me and they want to protect and provide for me. And then we have, after that, or before that actually, we have a conversation. So before we go into this connection, we have a conversation about what does it mean for them to give to me? And what does it mean if we have sex? And what does it mean if we don't have sex? And for me, communication is so sexy. That in itself is so sexy because you know where you stand. You can be in your integrity. You can be in your authentic self. You can exhale because you can show up and be fully yourself. Something I want to share here that is a little sensitive for me, but like throughout and also important to share because it was a big learning for me. Throughout the whole trip, like Jimmy's English, sometimes his words were not accurate. I'll just say that, which ended up becoming like a really funny thing between us because throughout the trip he would say things like, Brittnee, like I'm super stubborn. So if I want to go somewhere and he's like, it's not safe, I'm like, I want to go there anyways. And then he's just doing everything he can to make sure I'm safe. And he kept saying to me, Brittnee, I want you to do whatever you want. I just want to control you so that you can be safe. And I was like, are you like, can we just do like a translation thing here? And so I put in control into Arabic on Google Translate. And I was like, is this the word that you're trying to say? And he was like, no. And then he put on Google Translate and he was actually trying to say protect. This is a very interesting thing that happened because I grew up in an environment where men were actually using their energy to control and manage and like suppress my energy. So like sucking on my energy, my feminine energy, and then controlling me so that, so that they felt better and that they felt in control and they felt good about that. And this was something that I have such an aversion to. Like if I feel that someone is trying to control me or suppress me or, like put me in my place or whatever, I'm just like, no, thank you. You can get out of my life. Thank you. And I knew that this wasn't what was happening. But at the same time, when he said, like, I just want to control you, it was so triggering for me because I was like, we're in these super chaotic situations, like so many. And like, I'll give you an example. We're sitting in a room with like their friends and family, and there's 20 people in a very small living room. And I'm not joking, there's probably 6 or 7 simultaneous conversations happening all at once where people are shouting at each other just so they can be heard. And I don't speak Arabic at all. Everything's in Arabic. And the energy of the situation feels very aggressive, or at least not very positive. And so I think people are upset, like there's 20 people and everyone's shouting at each other. And so I turn to my friends and I'm like, what is going on? Is everything okay? And they're like, yeah, no, they're just talking about what we're going to eat for dinner. And I'm like, what? This kind of just shows you and describes how all of Egypt is. And it's just different. There's nothing good or bad. I'm not saying this is a negative or a positive thing. I'm just saying it's very different from what my body enjoys. My body enjoys being in quiet spaces, being in like calm spaces. Jimmy used to say, like, Brittnee, I know that you liked he said a soft space. I'm going to find you a soft space. And I was like, yeah, actually I do. I love soft spaces. This is what I love. And so to be in this environment, my body immediately wants to run away. This is what I did growing up. Like if I didn't like my marriage, I didn't like my religion, I literally got on a plane and moved away. And so I would, in that situation, I was like, I just want to go for a walk. And we were in a neighborhood that wasn't very safe. And Jimmy kept saying like, I just want to control you. I just want to make sure you're safe. And I was like, what are you talking about? You just want to control me. Like, leave me alone. I'm fine. Like, I'm fine. I can handle myself. And then this is when the translation started to be realizing, oh, he's trying to protect me. And this is what I mean about like, I felt like Egypt in of itself was such a big test for me the whole way through, because I do believe that there were situations that actually were unsafe, like for me as a Brittnee Bond. And I do believe that everyone around me was just trying to keep me safe and protect me. And also I think that because I have been raised in such an environment where people were trying to control me, like for their own benefit, it was so triggering for me. And we have triggers. I know this, and I share this on the podcast all the time. We have triggers come up because we want to have a lived experience of it being healed. In therapy, it's called a corrective experience. So you're actually correcting something like that was like broken or, traumatized when you were a kid. And that's really beautiful if it's held in safety, if it's held in a way where your body can process it so that it actually gets healed. When I was in Egypt, a lot of things would come up for me that were triggering, and they were like opportunities to heal. But the environment there is so intense and so loud, and I wasn't getting that much sleep. And there was just so many things happening one on top of each other that it was very hard for me to be able to transmute it into something that was positive, to the point where like at the end of the trip, my nervous system just felt like I felt like overwhelmed. My nervous system was like at a point where it was overloaded. I just kept saying like, this is too much. I just need to get a hotel on the beach where it's soft and safe and quiet. And we ended up renting a hotel room like inside of this compound, and it was like security guards everywhere, so no one can talk to you, because again, like I was sharing in my last podcast, it's like I already don't fit in. Like if I go out in the world, like I'm 180 centimeters tall. Like I did a lot of modeling in my earlier years. I have red hair. I have blue eyes. I dress in the way that I want to, which is very sensual and sexy. I already don't fit in any country that I'm in. You put me in Egypt in an environment where like there's like no women out in the streets and it's only men and their energy is very aggressive. It was a lot for me. And I just remember like even just coming here to Berlin, I arrived last night and I went out this morning to get a matcha. And I just remember looking around and just feeling like I could breathe. Like I could look around at people. They looked back at me, but the energy was not aggressive. It wasn't sucking. It wasn't like trying to get anything out of me. It was just like normal. And I was like, okay, we're safe now. We're safe. I can just breathe. But like at the end of the trip in Egypt, I just ended up staying in this compound, which it's funny because normally I'm the kind of person that hates this stuff. Like, you know, like the tourist trap where you just stay in this like all inclusive place and you have like a private way to get to the beach, and it's a private beach and there's like security guards everywhere. But I felt like at the end of the trip, I just needed to protect myself. Like Jimmy ended up leaving early, like because we booked our tickets back on accident wrong. And I just wanted a space where no one needed to look at me. I could just be by myself. And I felt like this, like, you know, virgin in amongst, I'm not a virgin, but you know what I mean? Like the energy, it was just like me being a virgin, just being like in amongst a bunch of wolves. I was just like, please don't eat me. And I mean, I can fend for myself, but like, I don't want to have to do that, you know, like it's not fun. And at the same time, I know that my soul mission is to come here into this planet and to be this like effervescent, like sexual creature that is just like oozing pleasure and connection and community. So I was asking myself, like, why am I in Egypt? Like, it's almost like me being myself in Egypt was like inviting, according to their culture, it was inviting so much danger and so much like drama, because like me just being myself was in of itself an invitation to a lot of men to come up and talk to me. And there was a reason why the universe, God, like gave me 3 Egyptian men to travel with. So I basically had 3 security guards around me at all times. And even that was sometimes, yeah, there was many times where there was almost fights between the men that I traveled with and external men, just because of the attention that I was receiving. And I was literally not doing anything. I was just being myself. I was literally, what I mean is by the being myself is like, I was just walking down the street. I was just eating at a cafe. And there's a lot of cafes there where there's no women. And I asked them, I said, why are there no women here? And the answer I got was that if a woman normally comes to this cafe, the men will start giving her like, you know, leering looks, like, you know, like kind of like, I want to eat you kind of looks. And then the men that they're with will start a fight with them because they're like, hey, you're disrespecting my woman, you're disrespecting me, you know, like you need to stop, and da da da. And it ends up escalating. So then the solution apparently is that the women just stay home. I don't know if that's a solution, but that's just how the culture is there. So for me to be myself, I'm like, I'm going to go to a cafe. I'm not going to sit at home while you guys are out, or like, I'm not going to have you bring me takeaway, you know? And again, like I'll say that like in the main cities like Cairo and Hurghada and like some of the major touristy cities, this is not so much the case, but what you'll see in the sense that you'll see tourist women out, but you won't necessarily see Arabic women. You won't necessarily see Egyptian women unless they are socialized, unless they have lived outside the country, unless they are, you know, like different. But I'm talking about like a typical Muslim Egyptian woman would normally not eat in a restaurant in some of the local places, which I just find super interesting. Let's see here. Something else I found really interesting about Egypt was none of my technology worked. So like I got there and my email stopped working, which I still don't understand why. So WhatsApp, this is something that I understand but I don't agree with. So like WhatsApp in of itself blocks calls going outside of Egypt. This is also something they do in Dubai and some of the other Middle Eastern countries. Someone was telling me they think it's because they want to track the calls, or they're worried about terrorism or something like this. But if I wanted to talk to someone, I could send WhatsApp messages or voice messages, but I had to go on Telegram or Instagram if I wanted to do a video call, which is just super weird. And also my cell reception was not working for most of the trip. And like the last place I stayed in Egypt, I needed to do catch up on a bunch of coaching calls. I wanted to make podcasts and upload them. I had no cell reception. Like the Wi-Fi in the hotel room was just out and no one could figure out why. They had sent a technician. They were like, I don't know, it works in all the other rooms. We can help. We can exchange your room. But then like I tried to change rooms and it stopped working in that room. And I was just like, you know what? I think spiritually I'm just not meant to be connected to the internet. And then like Jimmy ended up leaving on I think Friday or Saturday, and I was there for a couple more days. and my SIM card stopped working. So like I had no Wi-Fi, no data. I had no way to like message anyone. And I was just like asking myself like, what is happening here? Like, why is this happening? And the only conclusion I can come to, and like, this is my own conclusion, so take whatever you want and leave the rest. But I felt like my soul really wanted me to just completely be present in the moment. Because a lot of times when I'm traveling, I am working remotely, I am making podcasts, I'm making content, I'm making like Instagram content, because I'm excited to share all of this with you. You know, like I feel like you guys are part of my journey, and like sharing with you along the way is some of the best, because you can feel it in the moment, like what's happening. And I remember when I went to Burning Man last year, I like made podcasts at Burning Man, and it was so fun. And also I remember after I made a couple podcasts at Burning Man, I turned my phone off and I wasn't on my phone for the rest of Burning Man. And that was the best, because then you're fully immersed in the experience. And I feel like that's what the universe really wanted me to do here in Egypt, was to just be fully present, because there was so much chaos happening that it was like, whew. It's like I had to deal with the external chaos, and then I also needed to check in and be in tune with my body in order to really receive the spiritual downloads that I was meant to get. And I'm so grateful that I did that, and that made me feel so good. And I think I talked about this in the last podcast, but I just found it super fascinating that no one sleeps at nighttime in Egypt. Like I don't understand. Like we went out to the beach at like 4 a.m. and there are little children swimming and like with their full families. They're having a whole picnic at the beach, and it's 4 a.m., 5 a.m. And I turned to my friends and I'm like, why aren't they sleeping? And they're like, yeah, kids don't really sleep that much. And I was like, no, but really they have to sleep sometime. And they're like, well, usually at sunrise or like in the morning when it starts getting hot, they all take a nap and they'll sleep for like 3 or 4 hours and then they keep going. And they all said that like, yeah, this is how it was for us growing up. Like we didn't really sleep that much. We didn't need to. It wasn't that their parents were not giving them enough sleep. It's like literally the kids just didn't need to sleep that much. And I was like, again, my rational mind wanted to be like, I don't believe this. But also when you're in the experience and you're looking around and all the kids seem super happy and like just living their best life. And I was like, okay, maybe this is just how it works here. Again, maybe I'm just in a different dimension and things are just upside down here and I don't understand, and it's okay. So yeah, but I myself needed sleep. Like I'm a not normal, but I am a human who needs sleep. I'll just put it that way. And I think that's one thing I want to take out of my vocabulary is like, there really isn't a normal, you know, like we have what's normal in our society here in the Western world. But you know what, when I'm in Thailand, a lot of that normal doesn't work, you know, but I have over the last 10 years of basing in Thailand, I have like figured out what works and what doesn't, and I've acclimated to the environment there. Egypt is like a whole other level where I'm like, I don't know if I want to acclimate to this. I like to sleep at nighttime. Like last night I went to bed at 11 p.m. I woke up at like 7:30 and this is my happy place. Like getting 8.5 hours, waking up, doing my meditation, you know, just kind of rising with the sun and with the rest of the world. My actual happy place is to wake up at like 6:30, but we're getting back there. For me in Egypt, most of the time I went to bed at 6:30 in the morning. So I think we're doing great. I think I have more I want to say, but I think I'll share it in the next podcast, because the Temple of Isis is like a whole episode. I want to share about what happened at the Temple of Isis, but like I want to do it in like, I want that to be the major thing that I share in this next podcast. So I'm going to share that. But I just wanted to share some of these things with you because a lot of this is still integrating in my psyche of like where all of this fits into my life. But I just know that like being in Egypt was such a big download for me, and it helped me to drop into my real feminine power, because I really led with what are my desires and what is it that I really crave. And I spoke those desires to the men around me, and every single one of my desires was met and exceeded. It was like they were taking it as fuel to like go out there and like give me everything I could ever want and imagine. And I was just like really blown away by how much like the men around me just really cared about me and wanted to protect me, not control me. and just create such a beautiful world for me. And this was very humbling for me. Especially because I wasn't in a relationship with any of them. I think this is a normal thing that happens when, you know, you're dating someone, you're in a committed partnership. Like, okay, yeah, the men take care of you. But what happens if you're friends? What happens if you're not in a committed partnership? Are they still willing to show up for you in the same way? And they did. So I'm very grateful for that. So I am sending you all lots of love, and I will see you in the next episode.